If iRacing is not running smoothly on your PC, it's probably your settings, not your hardware. Now, I have made a video previous to this on microstutter in iRacing and how to fix that. And if iRacing is still not running smoothly, then this video will definitely help you fix it, as we're going to go into 3 settings hidden in the files that nobody speaks about, and it certainly has helped my iRacing run buttery smooth on my PC. Now, we are going to be editing some INI files and not some PDF files. I don't really know why I went there, but I digress. Basically, iRacing is still on DX11, like I said previously in my other videos. They are, to my knowledge, working on getting onto DX12, but what does this mean, that the fact that they are still on DX11? It means that iRacing isn't that great at spreading itself evenly across your hardware like newer games. So, if we think about it like this, cars kill your CPU, shadows kill your GPU. But while it's on DX11, that is probably the best, most simplest way to put it. So what I recommend you do now mid-video is press pause, load up iRacing, and just jump into a test drive. Don't worry, you don't need to set up your steering wheel or anything like that. We just need to go into a test drive, and if it asks you to calibrate anything, just press ignore. So when you need test drive, press the pencil icon there. A little box will pop up, and just press widget editor. Find system meters, and then press on the 3 bars. With any luck, this little box will appear. Basically, the 3 important letters there are L, C, and P. L is basically latency, the smaller the bar the better. C is your CPU, and P is basically, simply put, how many faults are found per 30 pages, whatever, it's more or less your GPU. Basically, simply put, the smaller the bars, the better. And I recommend that you run this little system meters message while you're having a little race. If in your little test race your C or P bar start flickering higher and higher, or one starts flickering more than the other, that'll give you a good idea for what the issue is if you're not getting a smooth iRacing. So if the P bar's flickering higher than the C bar, it's probably GPU bottlenecking, and if it's the C bar flickering more than the P bar, it's probably your CPU bottlenecking. So let's go and fix it. First thing first, in iRacing, being as though it is DX11, it's probably bottlenecking your CPU more than your GPU. So let's start with the CPU settings. Max cars is basically cars visible. This is probably one of the biggest FPS killers in iRacing. You don't need 63 cars rendered to race properly. I mean, admittedly, this really only counts if you're on bigger grids. If your CPU is bottlenecking, you could consider 20, maybe 30 cars. If your CPU is bottlenecking, this is more important than you might think. Mirrors are essentially rendering the whole scene again, so it might help to lower the quality. It's also important to know that you don't need to run all your mirrors. I recommend running 2 cockpit mirrors, which is your left and right mirror. That'll switch your rear view mirror off, put your virtual mirror on. Because we don't have free head movement unless you're on a VR headset, the cockpit rear view is pretty shit. Using the virtual mirror is a lot more helpful than the rear view cockpit mirror. Now if you'd like, feel free to copy the world detail settings. I've prioritised the settings that I feel though are important during a race, and turn down the settings that I feel aren't important. For example, grandstands and crowds are turned off or low, because we don't need digital people to cheer us on. And it costs an absolute ton. And again, pit objects are very nice to see, but when you're driving past the pit lane at 150 miles an hour, you're not thinking about what people's pick crew are wearing, or what colour the tent is. And again, if you're getting a lot of FPS drops when you're passing the finish line, that could very well be your issue. Your car detail settings are, well, is a little bit for more immersion, but as it happens, it also helps you run smoothly too. I like my steering wheel off because I like to think the steering wheel that I'm actually using is the steering wheel in the car. It's a little bit sad, I know, but oh well. But it actually helps the sim run a lot smoother too. Now, simply put, shader and shadow settings are the single biggest GPU killers in iRacing. If your GPU is bottlenecking, I seriously recommend that you start here and here with the focus on anti-aliasing method, however you pronounce it. Personally, I run MSAA times 4, but a very nice, very underrated middle ground I find is SMAA. FXAA is okay, it's better than none, but if you can afford the upgrade, go to SMAA. If SMAA is quite easy on your GPU, you can go to MSAA and play around with the ×4, ×8, ×16, but it's quite a large tax on your GPU in comparison to the step up from the SMAA. I hope you can keep up with this. I hope it's making sense. But this part right here is the iRacing's biggest GPU killer, in my opinion. Going back to the beginning of the video, can you remember when I said that we're going to go into some INI files and make some edits? Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get into them and what edits to make. Trust me, this is the money part of the video. You're going to open up your file explorer, go to Documents, iRacing, right-click Renderer DX11.ini and press Open with Notepad. When you're in here, be careful. Do exactly as I say. Hold CTRL and the letter F together. Search vidmem to use, and it'll bring you here that's highlighted blue. Do not go changing things willy-nilly here because your sim might just stop working. What you want to do now is work out what video memory your graphics card is capable of producing, and you want to go to roughly 80 to 90% maximum of that video memory. So if your GPU has 6 gig of video memory, you can happily set it to 5 to 5500, 8 gig of memory, 65 to 7200, 10 gig of memory, 8 to 9000, 12 gig of memory, 10,000 to 11,000, and so on. And this has been quite helpful because since I have updated all my files, I've now seen that I need to change this back to 11,000. This is actually a big cause of microstore because if this is set too low, iRacing will keep swapping in and out textures with your VRAM. Now for your system mem to use is basically the RAM that you're going to allocate to the game. You should be able to leave this alone, but if you really want to push it, let's say you're on 32 gig of RAM, you could maybe push it safely to 15, 16 plus. But depending on what background apps that you want to use, I'd be tempted to leave it on the lower end like I have at 12,000, which is 12 gig. If you're on 16 gig, then I'd probably lower that a smidge. But usually it's something that you can just leave alone. Now it's worth noting that these two changes aren't going to directly improve your FPS, but they are going to drastically improve your frame pacing, which means no micro stutters. Now, going back to the system memory allocation, given you RAM, if you do have 32 gig, but for some reason you're seeing that you've only got 6 gig allocated, do bump that up because that is also going to drastically help your frame pacing. Just don't go wild and send it up to something like 30 gig because you're not really going to see any benefit and your PC is just going to dedicate all the RAM to the sim, and if you're in Discord, Spotify, something in the background, you're just going to cause mayhem and probably cause your game to crash and your PC. I mean, it's salvageable, it's just a bit of a pain in the bum. You don't need more than 12 gig realistically for iRacing. Now what you want to do is just go ahead and press save. Now this might sound absolutely horrific, but if the changes that you've done have made no difference, go back and undo what you've done and then do the exact same in this file instead. It's the renderer dx11 monitor.ini. It's usually located directly under the file that we've just been editing. It's essentially the exact same file, but depending on multiple factors, sometimes your iRacing sim will read one of those two files, but it is usually the renderer dx11.ini file. Before we bring this video to an end, it might be worth creating clone files of those INI files that you've been editing onto your desktop. So just in case you do make a big boo-boo and you can't remember what you've changed or you made a slip up with your keyboard somewhere, you can always just revert back to the original file, if that makes sense. You can just swap the file back to the original, the clone that you've got on your desktop. That'll save you having to uninstall and reinstall the game, and yeah, it can absolutely save you a major headache. So it's good practice as well. It is very minor, this what we've been talking about tonight, but if you do start editing further files or if you get into coding or anything like that, it's always good practice to make an original working file before you start editing, for in case you do make a boo-boo, you've got to fail safe. So again, Thank you ever so much for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Jump on the live streams. It massively helps the channel. Give it a like. Help spread the video. Again, I have linked a video. I'll pop up somewhere here of the first version of eliminating microstutters, which we have not covered in this video. So they are very basic fixes, but very handy to know. If you want to go ahead and watch that, that'd pretty awesome. But again, hopefully, I really hope this has helped. I hope it's been easy enough to follow. Any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.